is video 16, which starts with taking and organizing notes. So it's very important that you pay attention to some of these pointers that it gives you in this section. On page 364, it says that you need to annotate a source. So if you look across at page 365, this is an example of someone who is of an annotated source. Okay, someone has gone in there, they've read it, they've kind of broken down what the source is telling them. They've pointed out some important statistics they might want to use. Okay, they've really gone in and examined how the source can be helpful to them. So you do want to annotate. Now, you wouldn't want to print off if a source is like 20 pages long. Roane State would probably not want you printing off a bunch of 20-page articles and annotating them. So you also need to find good ways to pull information from sources that are like on the screen. Okay, so like short, like this is like a one-page source here on page 365. That would be a great one to print and annotate. Other sources you need to find, like longer sources, you need to find ways to like pull information from the source and make a note of it. And I think the research cards that I'm requiring you to use would be a really great way to do that. Also look at page 364 under organizing your research. It tells you that you need to identify passages in your notes that are quoted, paraphrased, or summarized from your original sources. Okay, this is very important because you don't want to end up plagiarizing something. So if we look at our research cards, there is a space for you to do that. Okay, so whatever you pull from that source, whatever piece of information that is, you decide if you want to summarize it, paraphrase it, or quote it. That information goes here, and then you tell me by highlighting one of these which, like what you're actually doing with that source. Don't put more than one piece of information on a single card, even if it's from the same source. Okay, and I'll explain why that's important later, or it probably will become apparent to you as we talk about this more. Also, it says under that same section, divide your major topics into subtopics. And this is just a way for you to figure out what big ideas are you discovering about your source, and how can you divide it into clearer ways of thinking about your topic. So if we look back at the research card, we see that up here in the upper left-hand corner is a place in which I ask you to describe the main idea of the part in green in a few words and whether it works as a counter-argument against your thesis or a refutation. Well, I'll talk about the counter-argument and refutation more, but notice what I'm asking you to do. I'm basically asking you to create a category that this idea in green will fit into. And that's exactly what it suggests to do on page 364. It says that you should divide your major topics into subtopics. So that's one way of helping you organize your ideas. It also suggests that you bookmark websites. Every semester I have students who find a source that they think is going to be very helpful. A week later they go back and try to find that source and they can't. They didn't bookmark it. So it's a very good idea if you're not ready to take notes on it yet that you bookmark it. Right. If we look at page 366, we see information about writing an annotated bibliography. I'm not going to require that of you this semester, but I know in future classes you very well might have a teacher who asks you to do that. I know that I have had students in the past do this in American Lit. Okay, so it's just a way of making sure that you have read some outside sources that benefit your understanding of whatever's being discussed in the course. And you do that by, summarizing, and then you give a short evaluation of that source. Page 368 is a discussion of plagiarism. So the Academic Misconduct Agreement discussed plagiarism, and I have also mentioned plagiarism in other videos. But, there are obvious reasons why you don't want to do plagiarism, why you don't want that to happen, because that will damage your grade. It also keeps you from learning important skills that you need to know if you plan to move on in your college education. Page 369 discusses how plagiarism happens, and most of this I think is kind of referring to the accidental plagiarism, but even if it happens accidentally, it's still plagiarism. Page 370 discusses how you can avoid plagiarism. So again, avoid procrastinating, because when you procrastinate, you become more careless and then you overlook things that you really needed to do to avoid plagiarism. You should take notes as you read your source material, so that's very, very important. Indicate in your notes which passages are quoted, paraphrased, or summarized. Bookmark the web addresses. Okay, and definitely, consult with a tutor to assist you if you have questions about how to document a source. Page 371 discusses information that requires documentation and information that doesn't. So obviously, words that are taken directly from a source must be documented or cited. Specific ideas, findings, conclusions, arguments, as it says here, taken from a source, even if you put them in your own words, must be documented or cited. Okay? So remember, it's the idea that you're capturing. Even if you put it in your own words, you're taking someone else's idea or concept, okay? And so you have to give credit for that. Statistics, figures, and the results of a study must be documented. Information that does not require documentation is what is called common knowledge. So common knowledge includes information like, George Washington was the first U.S. president, page 372. Common scientific facts, oxygen and hydrogen make up water, okay? Information that's available from a variety of reference sources. So, for example, Brazil being the largest country in South America, that's a common fact that you can find in multiple reference sources, so that would be common knowledge. Information that is widely shared and found in numerous sources without reference to any source. So the idea that obesity is a widespread health problem in America, that is pretty much common knowledge. So you would not have to, give any source credit for that. However, if you were citing information, or if you were referring to information about statistics for how obesity was affecting certain parts of the population, that would have to be cited. Common knowledge can also include information that is geared toward a specific audience, or that information that a specific audience would know, and it would be common knowledge to that audience. So the example that the book gives is the idea that U.S. school children don't know geography very well. Educators probably are very aware of that, so that's common knowledge among educators. So that would not be something, if you were writing an essay and this idea came up, you might say something like, American educators are very aware of the problems that American school children have with locating countries on a map, right? Okay, so studies and surveys that you create and that you conduct yourself do not require documentation, and then your own opinions and stories about yourself do not require documentation. On page 373, we have some examples of plagiarism. I recommend that you read that, because so many students believe that if they just take out some words and put in some synonyms or some other words, that they are avoiding plagiarism. And that's not true. Even if you cite something, even if you, say this source came from so-and-so from page 12 or whatever, and you've taken out words and plugged in other words, you still committed plagiarism. Okay, because it's the idea and the way in which the idea is expressed that you have to work with. Okay, so you have to give credit for the idea, but you cannot steal the wording or the sentence structure. So I do recommend that you look at page 373 to see examples of plagiarized passages and acceptable like summaries. Page 374 gives a nice checklist for how you might avoid plagiarism. And then in the next video, video 17, I will discuss how to summarize, quote, and paraphrase.